Hello and welcome to a new episode of Foodocracy for Her. I'm Kalyan Karmakar, and Foodocracy for Her is where I speak to women entrepreneurs in the world of food. I'm in Mumbai today. I'm taking you to Delhi, and I'm going to speak to someone whom I first sort of knew as a part of an editorial team of the BBC Good Food magazine when it was first launched in India, and I think she commissioned a small article or review which I did. Well, happy to bring on board Kainaz Contractor. So Kainaz is the second Kainaz to come on the show, earlier being Kainaz Mesman of Theo Brahma. She's also the second Kainaz I knew in my life. I mean, after my wife, Kainaz. So good to see you, Kainaz.
Hi, Kalman. Great to be here, Kalyan.
Great. So, I mean, you guys can't see this. I normally wear a shirt when I do this interview because our late Jamshed uncle, who's also Parsi like Kainaz, now, unfortunately, he's no more. He'd once told me that whenever you do interviews, you should wear a shirt and not t-shirt. But I had to sort of wear this because she could. I thought it would be seen, but okay. So it says
Everything
relax.
goes in work from home, Kalyan. It's all
No. But this is part of the script. This part of the script. So what it says is relax. Nothing is in control. So okay. So that really, from what I'm understanding from Kainaz, that really is a story of an entrepreneur. And I'm going to go straight into something which happened last weekend and then go back to the normal format of what got her into food and all of that. And work from home, I must tell you, just before that yesterday was the first time I faced that because I had a sort of client call and I went to my desk and I found like a pajama folded over there and stuff, which I kept because we were gone on a staycation, so I kept it for our cats to sort of this thing. And then in the afternoon, I was sort of chairing a Zoom meeting, and in the back, I was mortified because there was this clothes rack with things sort of hanging, and one normally positions that away. But anyway, anything goes. Okay, so that what I was actually supposed to interview Kainaz last week, so it was just after the Parsi New Year and just before Raksha Bandhan. And then Kainaz disappeared.
Hell broke loose.
Kainaz disappeared. And then finally, the Interpol managed to find out what was happening there, Kainaz. what happened? No, and I'm not sort of pulling on them because I want you to hear the story just to get an idea of what an entrepreneur goes through. So over to you.
No 2 days are ever the same, and what you plan for will 100% not happen in the day. I'm still learning how to deal with that and not get frustrated by it. But I'm a Bombay girl, so for me, I'm used to a certain level of professionalism when it comes to work. And in Delhi, that kind of just all goes out the window because, one rain and it's all hell breaks loose. And that's exactly what happened this Rakhi, that, it rained on the day before Rakhi, and that's when we do a bulk of our deliveries because people wanted the day before. And it was everyone bailed, right? From the delivery guys to some of the chefs. They just couldn't come to work.
Of course.
Or it was a convenient excuse, as it always is in Delhi. If it rains at 6 in the morning, 12 o'clock, because subah ko barish hui thi.
Hey, that sounds like Calcutta. Huh? That sounds like Calcutta. That sounds like my city.
So yeah, same story. And every day, honestly, people like my friends who are not from the industry, they just can't believe it. They're like, I don't know whether you're making this shit up or whether, and if you do go through this on a daily basis, why are you doing this? So it's either one of the questions of disbelief and then that why are you doing this?
And you became a bit of a Hunter Wali Nadia, right? I mean, tell people a bit about that.
Yeah, because people are actually like when we have food to deliver, and that's what I always like. Now we've realized after opening a delivery kitchen that delivery kitchens are much more harder to run than restaurants, in my opinion. Because in a restaurant, when a guest comes, you make the food, you plate the food, you give it, and it's done. But for deliveries, you have to, first make it, pack it, call the rider, coordinate, make sure he's delivered it properly and not dropped it along the way or eaten it or God knows what, the number of excuses that come. So it's a lot more challenging because once a dish leaves your kitchen, it's very hard to control what happens to it. Yes. So we try to exercise that much, as much control as we can by, making sure we only have our own in-house riders. But sometimes, things just don't work out as per plan. So then we end up doing the delivery. So there's so many days where, guests will be surprised that, oh, you came to do the delivery. I was like, yeah, there's,
But that's part of once the full
yeah,
Parsi experience. I know you run the Rustom as well as Bhawan, which is not so Parsi. But a Parsi coming in a little scooter and stuff, or an Enfield is part of the full Parsi experience, right?
right,
So you can charge a premium for that. That
yeah.
the Kainaz surcharge.
I wish I had those little side scooters that my auntie used to have when I was a child.
Hmm.
The ones with the sidecar and all. Yeah,
Yes.
that would be perfect.
But funny you said this thing about the challenge of the delivery kitchen, because over the last couple of nights I was reading Munaf Kapate of Dori kitchens why I left Google to sell samosas. I wonder if sometimes if Google is a silent investor in Munaf's work, or he does this for the SEO thing. But jokes apart, I mean, there are lots of parts of Munaf's life which is out there and stuff like that. But there was this entire challenge of his setting up the delivery kitchen, which he spoke about over there in terms of like the rentals, the cloud kitchens, the consistency, and that's a very interesting aspect that you brought out, because in the pandemic that's become a very central thing, like even for the home chefs and all of that. But is that something which you plan to continue, or sort of move into the restaurant format?
No, so we, like Bhavan, like I said earlier, was meant to be a restaurant, and we'll continue our efforts in making sure it becomes a restaurant, maybe at the end of the year, next year, who knows. But at the moment, yes, delivery kitchens are the ones who are doing particularly well, just because if someone has reservations of stepping out, there's still that
Yeah,
option of
yeah,
providing food at
yes,
home. And also from, maybe things are better now where the lockdown has opened,
yeah.
and but again, if something happens, it's a more stable approach to making sure your business is at least floating through for the you know entirety of this bad time, who knows. But
Yeah, and that's true. From the other side, like as a diner, I think there's a certain, I don't know whether it's a comfort or inertia, whatever, but we got so used to sort of being at home that the idea of stepping out also it's a very challenging time for the hospitality
and also
industry.
And also, one more thing that I feel like now a person would easily choose delivery over dine-in is that because we as chefs and restaurateurs have actually put in a lot more thought into
Yes.
deliveries now, which we let's be honest, we didn't do. It was like a sweet little side income that was
There was no
happening.
need to. There was no need
There
to
was no
earlier.
need to. So we didn't, take that much pains to make
Hmm.
sure that, the same experience that a person had in the restaurant was translated at home. But
Hmm.
now you see, like, we are doing everything we can to make sure that, the first thing when we had the idea of Bhavan 5 years back, we were like, obviously it's never going to be a delivery kitchen. How can you
Hmm.
deliver chaat? That was the
Hmm.
first thing. Like, it was never on the cards, very honestly. But we had to work around it. So whether it comes to sending everything separately, making sure things are packed at the right temperature, what packaging, so all that is something that was, we thought it was an afterthought that we were kind of forced into because of the pandemic. And I think that's what's happened with a lot of restaurateurs right now, that they were forced into making that extra effort and that thought into, okay, now dine-in is no longer an option. So how do we make sure our food reaches in the best way possible? And believe me, now in Delhi, you have like properly plated meals. You can just imagine it being on a plate, but now it's in your delivery box. It looks as beautiful as it would in a restaurant. So I think it's, yeah, something that we've been forced to look into, and it's working out now. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I was speaking to Mr. V Sanghi a couple of days back, and we were discussing this. That is, it's a bit of a challenge to sort of bring the experience at home, but it's also interesting to see how people have. Sometimes there's this saying in Buddhism which I'm very fond of, which is turning poison into medicine. So taking a negative situation and creating something really wonderful out of it. Like not just going back to where we were. So I'm sure dining will happen and all that. But this because look at it the other way. I mean, look at the huge expansion in reach. Like for example, when I've gone to Delhi for my short trips, I've often wanted to eat at Rustom's, Bhonu, and Mr. Zubin Songadwala when he was at ITC Moria. He was a big advocate. But but now you can sort of order it in and stuff. On the parallel I want to draw is the home chef industry. So people think that lockdown happened and it was cakewalk for home chefs. But the main part of the home chef experience, and which Munaf also talks about in his book, was the interaction with the chef. Like it doesn't always happen in a restaurant, right? If you go into a saltwater cafe, you'll rarely see Gresham, but the service, the food, and all that. And I'm just taking that name, but it's true, right? And a home chef is all about interacting with them, going to their house or whatever, hearing their stories, and suddenly it just comes to in a plastic box. So then they use social media or whatever to sort of create their stories, connect with people, being in touch in WhatsApp with customers, and sort of building the relation that way. Okay, now, Kainaz was an editor, and probably, I don't know, maybe she does some work right now. And she must be thinking, what's this guy done that he's doing an interview and not even introduce the interviewee? So Kainaz Contractor is in Delhi. I have known her in Mumbai when she was part of the opening team of the BBC Good Food magazine. I understand that she worked in the Taj Hotel group for a bit, but in front of desk, not in the kitchen. And her partner is Rahul, and they've sort of moved life partner and business partner and everything. And then suddenly she moved to Delhi, and then she started Rustom's Bhonu over there, and sort of doing Parsi food. And from what I understand and gather from people who've eaten there, it's very grandmother food, so no microgreens or anything like that. And she's also sort of worked as a catering consultant manager to cafes like Cafe Dori, Tokai. And we were talking of Bhavan. So very recently they have launched Bhavan, not Bhavans. Bhavans is a college in Andheri in Mumbai. and there it's very interesting because they're doing charts, they're doing laddus. So I'm guessing that Rakhi would have been, it's more Bhavan which would have kept you busy than Rustom, right?
And this time it was kind of back to back where Navroz was
yes.
one weekend and the next weekend was Rakhi. So, like you were talking about with home chefs, I feel like with Rustom's especially, and any restaurant, when you build a restaurant and you're building your menu, you convey your story.
Yes.
What your vision of the restaurant is through the food, through the decor, through different ways. But when you move to a delivery format, then it becomes very hard to convey. Then what is the story behind the maybe dal makhni you're selling? What is the story behind it? So I feel like this time for us for Navroz, and we've been doing it for the past 2 years actually, is translating our Navroz Bhonu experience, which we serve on a banana leaf in the restaurant, to the diner at home. So earlier, like for the past 4 years, actually, we never did delivery of the Navroz menu because we're like, you have to come and experience it. It's an unlimited feast on a banana leaf. And that's something that we've been doing biannually, and we've been doing it ever since Rustom's opened. But now that experience has to be translated to the customer sitting at home. So whether it's, making sure that, okay, it doesn't just reach you in a plastic bag or whatever, you have to make sure we send the banana leaves, we send a little note on how to reheat it. So that whole experience now to translate it into a delivery format is something that we're also still learning along the way, and we're doing that. And with Bhavan started off as a delivery brand, so we knew exactly like how to make sure that our story is communicated to the customer, because at the restaurant, when we were planning on opening the restaurant before the pandemic, we had different touch points where we knew that, okay, this is how we'll explain.
Plus your identity, because of Kainaz and Rustom, is so Parsi. So suddenly a Parsi selling charts, So that must have been quite a task, right? To sort of convey the story.
Yeah, so Rahul, my partner, he's the one who started Cafe Lota in Pragati Maidan. So
Oh,
the
that's very
menu
well
was,
talked about. Yeah, yes,
yeah.
yes.
So his strength is regional Indian food. He's also not a trained chef, so he's also
He's a
learned.
sommelier, right?
Yeah, he's a sommelier. So he came to India. He was in Dubai earlier. He was a sommelier at the Gordon Ramsay restaurant there. So he came to India wanting to open his own restaurant. And then a series of events happened where he finally joined the guys who owned Cafe Lota. But at that time, Lota didn't exist. So he started out at Roots, which is a lovely cafe that they
Oh,
have.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
almost
it's,
went to Roots one night.
yeah,
Yes.
it's and it's a home style Indian food. So that's how he because his interest was learning about regional Indian food. So that's how he kind of started and got into that. And for me also, like both of us, honestly, our foundation for cooking has been learning through family members, learning through our mums, our aunts, just crowdsourcing all the recipes and knowledge that we can possibly get. And also, of course, the internet. That's our biggest, it's been our biggest teacher.
Ah,
So that's how. So me, I'm known more as the Parsi, but people in Delhi know that, and we also, because we are self-taught chefs, we don't pigeonhole ourselves into any
yes.
particular kind of cuisine. So I am Parsi, I know Parsi food, but because at BBC Good Food, we also did a lot of recipe testing and
Yeah, that's
everything.
the three-stage testing, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
the
it?
triple
Yes.
testing. So I was already cooking, maybe not professionally, but I was cooking different types of food for the past 3 years when I was with BBC. So I would always like to learn, experiment, and that's how slowly we started doing this. So that's what people also like. Okay, so you do Parsi, you do European, you do regional Indian, and what are you trained in? We're like nothing, honestly, but it's just
But
how
but
to.
but what you explained is really the journey of Parsi food, because if someone's saying that you're doing European, I mean many Parsis would say that a cheesy bake or in fact I was speaking about that with Nicole in our last interview, is as Parsi as Kolminu Sas or something like that.
Yeah.
And there are more Parsis eating Chinese food on
Yeah.
Parsi New Year than
People get, every
Bonus,
time
right?
people interview me for Parsi New Year, they ask me this question that when you were with your family, what were you doing? I was like, dinners were Links Pavilion.
Yeah, Links Pavilion, China Gate, or Gypsy Corner, depending on which part of
Yeah.
town you were. So Kurush and Ria, who run Katie's Kitchen, and they're big Links loyalists like we are, but they don't get places. So what they do is on Parsi New Year, they go for lunch in between service. But if you see Parsi food also, and I've actually lived in Iran years back, there's no connection, very little connection between the food of Iran and what the Parsis eat.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about regional Indian food, like you'll probably know better, like the patrani machi and all that. It's almost like a Gujarati dish, right? I mean, okay. So now I should do what an interviewer should do and really focus on your story. So tell me, Kainaz, your interest in food, you're a Bombay girl, and what were the influences around you? Your journey before I first knew you, which was in BBC Good Food. So what happened then from?
So my dad was in the Navy, so we traveled a lot. So I think that has been one of my
Merchant Navy or Indian Navy?
No, Indian Navy.
India.
So yeah, so we were transferred to a lot of places like Goa, Cochin, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore. So I've been to a lot of places. So my exposure to regional Indian food has been at a quite early stage. So, and that's how my interest in food overall, and my dad is the biggest foodie I know. So he would always, make me try different things. And one of my fondest memories of food as a child was I used to live in Dhanraj Mahal. At that time, Dhanraj Mahal had flats by the Navy. So a lot of
which part of Bombay is it? I mean, I've seen Dhanraj Mahal.
Dhanraj Mahal opposite Indigo Delhi and all in Colaba.
Ah, so it's Colaba. Yes, because I've seen the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Links Pavilion and
yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Dhanraj. So I used to
yacht club. So we used to meet Jamshid uncle at yacht club a lot. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I used to live in Dhanraj Mahal maybe when I was in the first standard or something, and then after that, fourth, fifth, sixth. So I used to go to school to St. Anne's, and my house was there. And right opposite me was Nanking at that time. Nanking was that time. And it was my favorite restaurant. And my dad used to take us there maybe once a month or something. But I had become friends with the waiters. So every time after school, I would take
Was Johnny still there? Was Johnny, right?
I don't know name, but I just...
No, Johnny was this person in this very flowery shirt and all of that. Then he's now retired because of ill health.
So I used to go after school, and instead of going home, I used to go via Nanking and obviously a young, chubby, 6-year-old girl asking me what is there today for food, and then they would be okay, try crab, try golden fried prawns, try this. So that is how that's where my addiction, I think, for Chinese food has stemmed from. But now I'm always like, Rahul's like, you crave Chinese food way more than you crave Parsi. And
Same here.
Let's be honest. So,
yes. But a certain type of Parsi food, like I said, Chinese food, like for example, Lings and Nanking, but not necessarily a lot of the others. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All old school Chinese food.
Yeah.
So that's where, I was never hesitant about, okay, this is the kind of things I like, I don't like. I used to try everything, very honestly. So, and my parents also knew that, okay, she's going to get into that line later on in life. But
are you an only child or?
No, I have a brother.
Okay.
I have a brother. He's engineer proper. Done the right.
Proper. I like how you like engineer proper. Here, there are all the chefs, Sanjeev Kapoor, Saransh, all that, who are trying to say that, now being a chef is as much as being IS, this, that, and तुमने पूरा ये कर दिया, मिट्टी में मिला दिया, by saying engineer proper.
Because I'm envious because he's living a balanced life. He goes scuba diving, he goes this. I'm like, oh, I'm at the restaurant. I'm still.
You're diving into a pot of unsung dal.
But
anyway, yes.
So so then after that, I initially did really badly. I wanted to join hotel management, but my parents kind of opened my eyes at that time and made me talk to a lot of hoteliers at that time. Who were like, you can join hotels anytime you want, but it's important to get a more neutral degree rather than if you don't like hotel management, at the end of the 3 years, you'll be stuck with a degree that you can't use anywhere else. So that was one very valuable piece of, advice that I got at that time. So I got into HR, where I did my BCom, but I specialized in advertising because.
Just so the people, HR is a college in Bombay and not human resources. Yeah, because the rest of the world is So you did advertising.
Good to clarify. Yeah, so because at that time when I was in college, I was conflicted between advertising and hotels and F&B. So that's why I did BCom, where my options would be open at the end of it.
And you wanted to be like a writer in advertising or something on the creative side? On the creative. Okay. So then there would have been two Kainazes who were copywriters.
So I did that, and I did advertising as well. But again, the itch continued, and
you worked in agencies?
Just as an intern. I didn't pursue that professionally. Because at the end of my college period was when I started applying to Taj for their management training program. So hotels have a management training program.
Yes.
Taj does, Oberoi does, but Taj was the only one at that time that accepted non-hotel graduates. So that is where I sort of, applied for that.
Did the Parsi connection help?
No, not at all. I think it was my pestering that helped, because my college very conveniently forgot to give in the application, so I missed my date. And Taj said, sorry, we cannot take you and all. But I fought and I somehow got through. And I think it was that kind of, persistence that kind of won them over, I guess. And I got into the program, and I did it for 1.5 years. Then I became a restaurant manager as well. And I think the reason why I didn't pursue that any longer was because when I joined Taj, my idea of a restaurant manager was very different from reality. I thought that as a restaurant manager, you come up with menus with the chefs, you collaborated. I thought it was the whole experience, but it's not, because it's very compartmentalized, rightly so.
Also
That
very logistics. It's more about managing the logistics and
manpower, yes, and that is something I was
and
more,
the occasional food reviewer, and now of course all the
yeah.
bloggers and Instagrammers.
So I was more leaning towards the kitchen. So it's my fault. I didn't know what I was getting into.
No, but you know what? I must tell you that my second job, after I moved from market research, I've been in market research through most of my career before I moved into writing. My second job was account planning in advertising, because that was the natural progression after research. And like you, I thought that I'll go into advertising and write scripts, this, that, whatever. And then when I joined FCB Ulka, which is early 2000s, there was no clarity at that time about what an account planner did, or at least maybe I didn't have it. So the main thing I got out of that was meeting, the other Kainaz, my wife, and that's about it. But unless you try it, you don't know stuff. So sometimes you need to do it. Yes.
Yeah. So
but I also strongly believe that you always pick up something from those experiences, even if subliminally. Like this. I'm sure this 1.5 years of being in the Taj group and all that must have left an experience.
It helped me. What I'm doing now is directly. Yes. That's what when people say you're not a trained chef, so how are you running restaurants? I say, but I may not be a trained chef, but I've done the part of running a restaurant. I've done that before. So so it was, and even so with Taj, at the end of it, around the time when I was at Taj, food writing had really picked up around that time. So because I was very interested in food and I wasn't getting that kind of experience at my current job then, I was always reading a lot. I was going out, I was reading blogs, yours being one of them. Actually, I had read that. So I was really interested in that. And at that time, as a in your early 20s, for me, I was like, I have till 30 to decide what I want to do. So I was fairly fluid, and my parents also
I like that till 30. Yeah.
Yeah, I had kept a 30 deadline. I was like, till 30, I can figure out what I need to do. Yes. So I was like, okay, now let me try this, because this seems more like what I could be interested in doing. So then I applied to, I wrote to Time Out, I wrote to Nat Geo, I wrote to everyone possible. And at that time, I didn't have zero writing experience. So I used to just write stuff at home, and my mom would proofread it, because she's an avid reader and her vocabulary is brilliant. So she used
and she's a Parsi mom. So Parsi moms are very
so she
sheltering.
And I would send it to people, like just, I would call up the TOI office and be like, okay, what's your editor's email address? And I would just send it off. So at that time, I think Naresh Fernandez was the only one who replied out of them. At Time Out.
Very nice guy. He's with Scroll now. I mean, he runs Scroll.
Brilliant. And I got an opportunity to intern at Time Out, which I did for about 6 months. Massive learning. Did not know anything when I went in. And then after that, Antoine Lewis, who used to be at Time Out, and then he started working with Burp at the time.
Yes.
Before Zomato. Yeah. So with Burp, so they were starting a new vertical. We weren't there for the listings website, but they were starting a new vertical, which was a food-centric website, fully editorial. So we had a really solid team, and we were working on articles there for about, I would say, a year almost. And then it just never took off. So we had like a bank of, 100
articles. I think the whole thing was there, but the site never came live. That's so frustrating.
Some internal,
that's so frustrating.
So we had like a bank of 100 stories and articles and everything that we done that never saw the light of day. But that opportunity gave me Good Food, because at that time BBC Good Food was hiring, and it was in fact Antoine who put me in touch with them. So I started working there as a junior food editor, and then I moved up. But that was like the biggest, and till date I say that was the best job I had. I loved it, because I got to write, I got to cook, I got to meet chefs. It was just a brilliant job overall, and massive learning as well, because I got to interact with a lot of chefs to understand, what was happening in the food scene, what was their inspiration, their stories. at the same time triple testing their recipes, which is,
Yes.
brilliant. So it was fun. But then the magazine turned veg. And then I
Yeah.
was like,
So you stormed out like a good Parsi.
ideological reasons.
But I must interject at one point, this thing. I think that BBC Good Food was really a turning point for Indian food media. In fact, I was in touch with them even before that. Like Suna Bahadur was editor, and we had a chat and stuff. And at that time, I was in market research, so I was still not ready to sort of make the move towards writing. But I guess everything has its time. But I think that Sona's vision and the vision of BBC Good Food in that avatar was, I think, very different, because they were also sort of trying to bring out a face of Indian food, which I think was at that time not so focused upon on mass media. And she was reaching out to, for example, bloggers to write also, while otherwise, like you said, I mean, I've also gone through that round where I would often cold call to magazines and sites and send stuff, and no one ever replies. In fact, in my stuff, whenever I've done columns, it's always been when people have approached me. But when I've written, I mean, I must tell you, like, even with having this blog, this, that, whatever, it never really works out. So because they work within this band, like, for example, how TV shows are, they work within the band of people. But they looked at bloggers, then they looked at photographers who are different. Like, I think they used to do a fair bit of work with Anish Bhasin, for example, and who's now, of course, Swami and all that. But his type of photography was more reflective of where the food photography world, travel photography world was moving, versus the earlier sort of food photography, with with the green peas falling down and the carrots popping up. So I think it was pretty revolutionary, and I think that everyone who had an interaction with the magazine, I think it was like, yeah.
Pretty path-breaking for its time then, because the kind of photos you see now on Instagram, which
Yeah.
Pinterest worthy, that is the kind of stuff that we were doing 7-8
Yes.
years back. We had a stylist on board.
Yeah.
So I used to take great pains in making sure, we had the right props. We had a great stylist, Shreya. So collectively, and also making sure that it wasn't only about recipes.
Yeah.
We were talking to farmers. We were talking to, we were picking on issues wherein we talk about a particular ingredient. So whether it's salt, whether it's olive oil, you dive deep into the ingredient, that kind of stuff. So I feel like overall, the magazine had...
And not just chefs, but all sorts of restaurants. Like I had done this story for Deluxe Restaurant over there, and there were so many people this thing. So from there you stormed out of BBC Good Food when they said that it's going to be only vegetarian. In fact,
I think that did
folded up soon after that.
To be fair, I tried for 6 months. And
but you got so angry that you stormed off and went off to Delhi. Tell me a bit about that. And then trying to get people in Butter Chicken City to start opening their hearts to Sully Chicken as well. So how and why did that happen?
Yeah, so I think so. Like I told you, my pre-30 plan was to do whatever I want, but my post-30 plan was to open my restaurant. That was very clear in my head.
I must think of a post-50 plan now. You're almost reaching there. Almost reaching there.
So I think the plan was to learn as much as I could in every so even though I did a lot of different things, they were all in some way or the other related to food. So whether it was learning about the back end of a restaurant, whether it was learning about the anthropology of food or where ingredients come from, whatever, it's all been in somewhat connected. When the whole vegetarian thing happened, and at that time there was no other food magazine where I could see a parallel shift to. There was nothing at that time.
I think now, to an extent, I would say that in the new age of magazines, I mean, there's of course the doyen, in a sense, upper crust, but it takes something to sort of be consistent over so many years. But I would say that in a way, the Condé Nast India, while it's a travel thing, their food sort of thing, I think, carries that spirit ahead in a sense. I feel.
Yeah, but like I said, like what I really liked about Good Food was it was a mix of cooking and writing, and
Yeah,
that is
because it was
something
a,
that I
and that was
wanted to
unique to
look
Good
at.
Food India, because Good Food in
Exactly.
UK was completely restaurant, and then it was like food recipe,
That was
and
all.
then they had that other thing which was
So
Olive.
Good
So
Food India was actually a mix between BBC Good Food India and Olive,
yeah,
which
that's.
two magazine brands.
I remember chatting about it in bagel shop with Sona, where, she was telling me of the plans, showed me the magazines.
So
Yes.
that's what. So at that time, I was like, okay, so I don't see anything happening in this line. So may as well prepone the restaurant idea. So, and at that time, me and Rahul started talking. We knew each other from Taj, so we started talking again. And he was like, okay, I'm planning on coming back to India. And then he came back, and he loves Parsi food. So he kind of nudged me that, let's do this. And even when I was in Bombay, I always felt Delhi had a more superior, dining out culture, not because of the restaurants, but I was more inclined towards the state bhavans because you had regional representation from a lot of states in Delhi. So people were used to eating Andhra food, Naga food. There were little pockets in different colonies where you had northeastern food.
Actually, it's a bit sad because if you think of it, and you're a South Bombay girl, and of course this thing, but actually Bombay has a very strong regional thing as well, because you've got Keralite, Mangalorean, ODP from Karnataka, the whole of South. You've got Gujarat, which of course, whether it's Bombay or Gujarat, you can decide. There's Maharashtrian in the sense of Malwani and all of that. But yeah, there's also a lot of Punjab, UP, but Punjab, UP is probably considered as Indian. So yeah.
Yeah, so no, but like also there were so many factors at play, like Bombay real estate is so expensive.
Yes.
I could never even think about opening anything in Delhi, in Bombay. And at Delhi at that time, it just excited me more. I was like, okay, let's move to another city. I like Delhi. And I just felt that because there was so much state bhavan representation, I felt like people would be maybe more open to trying Parsi.
Yeah.
And also Parsi's been done in Bombay. Like
and there would always be this comparison between an ideal Britannia and
exactly.
military, which Soda Bottle face as well. I mean, they opened last in Bombay of all their branches.
And the thing is that I didn't want to be compared to Britannia or a Jimmy Boy, because the kind of food that they serve is also not home style Parsi food. So I was very clear that I wanted to do home style Parsi food, which people just don't have access to. If you're not invited to someone's house, there's no way you can have it. So.
And now there are not as many lagans happening as in the 70s or 80s. No, I mean, when I came to Bombay, like invite a Parsi wedding was really coveted by people, because see, in Calcutta, all weddings, non-vegetarian, but in Bombay, I think only the Parsis, apart from maybe the Christians, would have non-veg in their wedding. Otherwise, the Maharashtrians, Punjabis, Kerala, is that wedding becomes fully vegetarian. So it was like Parsi wedding, matlab, as non-veg. And you know how Bombay is, no? It's non-veg. Like, it's not after that okay, what in non-veg? It's like, say, Parsi or Bengali would, whether there's going to be sasni machi or patrani machi. Yeah, it's non-veg khana hai. But anyway, so how was it introducing Parsi food to Delhi?
So it was quite interesting. I wouldn't say it was very challenging, to be honest. I think there were a lot of people who already had a fair bit of knowledge about Parsi food, but at the same time,
and about Parsis also, because there's so many senior politicians, lawyers, all of that. Like my grandfather worked in Delhi in the railways before he retired and came to Calcutta. So when I got married to Kainaz, then a lot of Bengalis in Calcutta had to be explained, like, who are the Parsis, is that. But my grandfather knew, because he used to work in the railways, and he was in the central thing in Delhi and was exposed to so many people. So the Parsi culture per se is, part of Delhi.
But I think the biggest challenge that I thought I would face, and I made a very deliberate attempt not to be pigeonholed as those, eccentric Parsis. That's a very easy trap to fall into, wherein we make a lot of fun of ourselves and we can laugh at ourselves, but
like the Punjabis.
Yeah, but what I did want to showcase at Rustom's was the other side of Parsi food and Parsi culture, wherein, like the music is Sinatra and all your...
Not ABBA.
Not
ABBA.
ABBA, Sinatra, everything mixed.
Yes.
Then the decor was also more about, you feel like you enter a Parsi home. So a lot of lace doilies, old chairs, those tables, the glass tables, just ke niche you have postcards and all that.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of vibe, and that was the kind of take home we wanted the guests to go back with.
And this was initially where, I remember it was a very small place. I remember Mariam Rishi writing about how hard she found it to get an empty table.
Yeah, initially it was in Achini, which is on that Hoskas main road. It was there, but very small. It was about, we had 5 tables. That's about it. And the challenge that we faced was, so even if someone knew about Parsi food, it was only limited to dhansa, salikoti, patrani machi, and keema pav. That's it. These are the 4 things.
And raspberry.
Yeah, raspberry. And the challenge was to make sure where people would try out our other dishes, and that came through, obviously, through training my staff to make sure that they explain to the guests that, okay, you've had dhansak 5 times now, so why don't you try dhandar patio today, which is different. And that's what, so it was a slow educational process, but now people, like my menu now is a mix of everything, and people try, your chicken frill cutlets to sasni machis. There's a whole mix of stuff. And I think the way we actually were able...
And you moved, right, later to the Parsi Dharamshala complex or something like that?
So we moved 3 years back.
Where my in-laws have stayed, in fact. That's how they've stayed in Parsi, Delhi Dharamshala. Earlier.
Yeah, so there's a Delhi Parsi Dharamshala in ITO, which houses the only fire temple in Delhi. In North India, actually. So we were approached about 3 years back to run the canteen for them. So that's when Rustom's moved, because at Achini, it was getting really hard with parking and just generally. So we decided.
But this is now open to all.
Yes, it's open to all. But because we are inside the premises of Parsi Anjuman, there's a temporary membership fee that you have to get, which you get.
Even when you go to Gallops. Correct. They had a 5 rupees or something, or whatever it was. It's been a while, but
so that's so exactly that's how it is.
Do you have to keep a separate menu for the people staying at the Dharamshala? Yes. Because I mean, obviously, the restaurant rate and restaurant food also is not what they'll want.
No, because the good thing is that because we serve home style food, it's they love to eat out of that. But of course, the pricing is different if someone stays in.
Which is fair enough. Yes.
Yeah. So the whole. The way we kind of broke into the Delhi market, I would say, is by giving the right suggestions to the right kind of people, because everyone assumes that Parsi food is sweet and sour, khat tomato. But there are certain dishes that do not have. Yeah,
so we've been trying Maruk Mugrelia's food a lot during the lockdown, and her roots are in Navsari. So Kainaz loves it because it's very traditional, and I do also, but it's so spicy. Yeah. Because it's more rustic, and one never associates, like Bombay Parsi is more sweetish.
It's more sweet. So that's what there are. If you have, like, for example, there are people who come and have our prawn curry, and it's a different style of prawn curry.
Now to Kainaz, when she sees this, I mean, my wife Kainaz, because we watch these interviews later together, she'll hear prawn curry, and it's more Parsi than Goan now. She's going to book a ticket to Delhi to go there.
Yeah, so that's what there is. Even with Parsi food, there's no standard, like there's nothing, you can't call one food authentic or not, because a Parsi guy who's been in Goa, his recipe will be different from the Parsi guy who's in Gujarat. So there are so many permutations and combinations of the kind of food that you can serve. So at Rustom, this is my family's recipes that we've grown up eating. So at the very first month of opening Rustom's, we made it a point to suggest the right kind of dishes to the right kind of person. So if you have a hardcore Punjabi coming to you, asking you for a butter chicken, and he would, like, that's happened to me, they'd be like, okay, butter chicken se milta julta kya hai?
This Saurish Bhattacharya was telling me recently on a phone call the other day. it's very difficult to break out of butter chicken in Delhi.
Yeah, and
Like
they would ask that, butter chicken se milta julta kya hai tumhare paas?
Sunny chicken.
No, then I would be like, we have Kajuni Margi, which I have.
Oh.
Maybe that
But
could
that's white, no? The Kajuni Margi isn't that the
yeah,
whitest
white.
one?
Yeah, so I was like, but whatever, same.
Safed butter chicken.
Creamy
Like the
texture.
Ludhiana, there's a Ludhiana yellow colored butter chicken, right?
Yeah, so then we suggest the Kaju Margi. If someone says that, okay, I do not like sweet in my food, then we won't recommend the Sali Boti. We'll suggest the chicken vindaloo instead. If someone doesn't...
And this your staff could do as well. So it's
Yeah,
not just
yeah,
you. You
yeah.
train because you can't be there
With
24/7 or maybe.
That was, and that was the biggest, of course, I was chained to the restaurant for the first year, but that is something that was very important because the outcome of whether your guest had a good meal or a bad meal depends on their recommendations. And that is something we quickly realized within the first week, that we noticed that people were coming and just because they knew, like if you go to a South Indian restaurant or a Keralite restaurant and your only knowledge is of appam and stew example.
Yes.
But you do not like home.
It's a very good point. Years back I'd gone to this Japanese restaurant in Kolaba, and my one point was when I wrote about it. I don't know if you remember. It was towards the Radio Club side, Tetsuya or whatever. Yeah. So my only point was that it was an expensive place, which is fine. The decor was fine. This that. I just wish that there was someone who could guide me through the food because, I mean, and this was like 8-9 years back. We'd not even gone to Japan then. I mean, not that we are like any expert stuff, but that makes such a big deal. I also want people to sort of take a step back and think about what you did because you're not a chef and whatever. And then you left your own hometown and the secure base and you went to a completely different city and to set up the restaurant and that's and the recipes were from where, like family, internet.
So before I moved to Delhi, I actually spent 2 months in Nagpur. So my aunt is a home chef in Nagpur and she's the most brilliant cook I know. And she's
what's her name?
Maruk. So
she
Maruk
sells again.
She used to sell these masalas.
That's a big thing.
Called Auntie's Masalas and Best Masalas.
Oh, I've heard of Auntie's Masalas. Maybe I've tried it also. I think our Jamshid uncle had sent us Auntie's Masalas.
So she ran a home kitchen in Nagpur and she learned all her recipes from my grandmother. So it was a no-brainer. I immediately went and I set camp in her house.
So you're eating Nagpuri Parsi.
So I learned everything from there. And then, of course, ask all my relatives, tell me all your recipes. So I got like a lot of crowdsourcing of recipes and I learned at home. And then I went to Delhi and, we found a chef and we started off by cooking in my house. It was a barsati. It was a 1-bedroom barsati.
Barsati is a very Delhi concept. Like PG in Bombay.
It was a makeshift house on the roof. So I had a 1-bedroom barsati over there and we had a tiny kitchen and we had one chef who we hired. And we started. So Rahul was at Lota, so he would be at Lota the whole day, and I would be with my head chef Prakash, who's still with me till now, and we would cook. And
did he have any Parsi food experience, or you taught him?
No. He used to work at Gunpowder. So
the South Indian.
South Indian. But he has a very keen interest in learning new dishes. So, and that's the good thing about my team that we built now over the past 5 years, is that they are as interested in learning about different cuisines than we are. So we've had, chefs who have no experience in making pancakes, waffles, poached eggs, but they've learned it. So that's what people ask that, how did Blue Tokai start? So Blue Tokai, we started sending them food because they were big fans of Cafe Lota. They approached Rahul and they're like, we're opening a small coffee place and we want food and we like quiches and sandwiches. And he's like, yeah, great. Kainaz Parsi knows quiches.
But quiche and sandwich is very Parsi, especially ham sandwich. It's very Parsi.
Yeah, so Rustom's was only open for lunch and dinner. And in the middle, we were closed between...
So you're making sandwiches, like a good Parsi granny.
Sandwiches between 3 to 7 and we were sending it there.
But that's a nice model. In Bombay, in fact, Max Street Kitchen were doing the bakes for Blue Tokai. So it's a nice way of the food industry coming together and partnering.
So it kind of started off very amateurly like that, but then the response was good and Blue Tokai did really well. They took off. So we kind of moved and we opened a proper kitchen over there, hired a separate set of chefs over there. And nothing, it was just a matter of we used Melbourne cafes as our inspiration for our menu there. And just experimenting, trying. That's how it happened, very honestly.
And you know that it's that BBC Good Food time when I think we also sort of awakened to cafe cultures like Melbourne, London also when I went there, and of course Melbourne I went to many cafe and stuff like that. I mean, all of that sort of came together. Okay, listen, there are two questions I want to quickly ask there because I think we've got about 7 minutes. First, a bit more specific that in terms of so that people this thing that what's the vision in Bhawan and what are you trying to do? And then a slightly more market-related question. So, okay, just a quick sum up on Bhawan and what's the vision there?
Okay, so Bhawan was supposed to be a restaurant, but we had to, close it before it even opened because of the first lockdown. And we pivoted to a delivery-only model, and we've been doing that for the past 1 year. It's going to be, it's going to turn 1 on the 1st of September.
Wow!
And
happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
And this is going to be aired before that.
Yeah, and
1st September, huh? Maybe I'll air this on 1st September.
And the response has been phenomenal. We've been accepted with open arms, and also the key thing to note is that we opened a chaat-centric brand at the time when people didn't have access to chaat.
During the lockdown, yeah. So that's a very smart thing. The Home Chefs Awards, which we did for Home Chefs, there was one category which was street food from home, and very few people were doing it. Like Sheetan Kakar in Bombay was doing lovely pav bhaji and all that, but people are craving for that. That's a great idea.
So it was purely coincidental that happened, but of course it worked out great for us, and now we are still trying to fulfill our vision of opening it as a restaurant. So hopefully it happens this year.
And there's always this Bombay Delhi war, and here there's a Bombay girl going to Delhi and making chaats. And of course, like you said, it's Rahul's person behind.
And with Bhawan, the idea is more about regional Indian street food. So it's not only chaat. It's the whole idea actually behind Bhawan was that.
So you'll do Calcutta rolls and puchka and jhalmuri sometime?
Yeah. We do. We have puchka, we have jhalmuri.
Oh, awesome.
But not rolls. We've not started rolls as yet, but that's on the cards.
Okay. When I come to Delhi next time, we'll do the rolls together.
So the whole idea behind Bhawan was that we want to, because with Lota, Rahul had done regional Indian home food. So we wanted to now do regional Indian street food, which unfortunately has always been pigeonholed as vegetarian for some reason. Like if you see Haldirams,
come to Bori Mohalla, tell people, come to Bori Mohalla. But they're knocking that off also.
Yeah, so unfortunately till now, all the brands that were representing street food in India were always chaat, were always vegetarian.
Yes.
And that we felt was a very inaccurate representation of what Indian street food is like. So which is why the idea of Bhawan came from. And now people always say that, it's like a upscale Haldiram. I was like, no.
No. You do the Bengali mutton roll and then there'll be no talk.
Yeah. So we do like mutton dahi vada. We do our own spin every weekend. We try and do a different regional.
Do you do the Chinese meal of Bombay?
No, not yet. It has to be in a restaurant because it will get soggy. But we try and do different things. We have a bacon kachori that we worked on. We have a choris pav bread pakoda because instead of putting aloo in a bread pakoda, we did choris pav. We do a mutton dahi vada. And with chaats also, what we've tried to do is we've done regional Indian chaats. So you have your Banarasi tomato ki chaat. You have your Bhutte ka kees, which is from Indore. And we've also done our own spin on charts wherein we try to focus on ingredient specific charts. So we've come up with a chart which is a Bengani chart which has a Bengan bharta ka dahi as a base.
Wow.
And instead of like a palak patta, it has Bengan chips. So you have a Bengan bharta.
It almost sounds Lebanese in the
Yeah,
in
so
a sense,
that is, yeah, so that is one. But it has your amchur chutney, khajur chutney. So that is one. Then we did a beetroot chaat, which took inspiration from your Calcutta chop. So we
Oh
did
yeah,
a
yeah,
beetroot,
yeah.
yeah. So we did a beetroot chop, and then we did a beetroot curd and beetroot chips. So different. Take a single ingredient and then make a chaat around it. That is something that we tried. So that's what
Brilliant.
we're constantly changing our menu, and
And much more than a single spice, whoever
yeah.
that nut
Can't
paste
believe
was.
he said that. Yeah.
So, Chef Vineet Bhatia is a big fan of beetroot, and I remember once eating at Zia with him, and we had the beetroot tikki, which was really lovely. And the next day, I got a Bengali caterer friend of mine to take the vegetarian veg chop of Calcutta, which is said like the beetroot. Okay, one last question. Hopefully, it's within an hour. Otherwise, I might have to cut it on Instagram. But about branding, because see, you've worked in advertising, you've covered the food market as a writer. So I know this could be a bit personal, but it also I think gives people a lot of perspective, because sometimes you see people around you doing things which you might want to do in the same field or maybe bigger names or whatever, and then you wonder that should I start, not start, where am I? So I want to bring you straight to Soda Bottle Opener Wala, and the fact is that I think they'd opened before you did, and they had created this Irani cafe and therefore Parsi sort of thing like that. It also comes from a big restaurant industry chain and with a lot of respect, olive and all stuff like that. And then you went and opened a Parsi thing in that market. And I just want to know what was going on in your head. Were you overwhelmed, or did you have your own clarity about what you want to do? I just feel it's very important for people to know across, like even writers. Sometimes, like I feel overwhelmed. Sometimes I feel that okay, Condé Nast is doing this, then people are writing all these things, B52 and Leaf 52, this, that. I mean, what is poured all finely chopped? So I really want to sort of learn from your thought and
I think
experience.
that's actually a very important question that you asked, because not many people know this, but Soda Bottle Opnawala was a name that I wanted for Rustam's initially, because it so happened that I had worked with Sabi, who was the guy who originally did
Yes, Sabyasachi Garai, yes.
Sabyasachi Garai, and we had done a shoot with him in Delhi 2 years, I think, before Soda opened. And at that time, he told me, I want to open my own Irani cafe brand and all. And I was like, cool, you should name it Soda Bottle. It's hilarious. And it's so funny. But the day me and Rahul actually were like, okay, we're doing this. And he's like, what will we name it? I was like, yeah, Soda Bottle. And that was the day I got a press release from Olive. So it was the most hilarious thing that happened. And I was like, okay, no stress. We'll work on something else.
You
And
got
then,
used some.
and Rustam was like a no-brainer, because it was
Yeah.
it's my dad.
I don't know if you
And
studied Brennan Martin in school, but in Brennan Martin, one of the Indian characters used to be Rustam's and different preposition thing. So Rustam's your dad's name also.
yeah, it's my dad's name, and honestly, right now, Rustam's is the perfect fit, because
It is.
it's not
It's so.
quirky. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Soda, I guess, would have become a bit quirky for what we were doing, but
Also, your vision, like you said, I mean, you wanted to show Parsis as normal people.
and the more cultured side of Parsi people, rather than the eccentric side, and also.
Not
But
the
it
Irani
was,
side.
yeah, and it did take us aback, when that news happened, and I was like, okay, now we do need to rework a bit of what we had in mind. So we did discard, like, initially I wanted to put berry pulao on our menu, but then we're like, okay, you know what, let's scrap it.
And it's not really very Parsi in any case.
It's not,
Yeah.
But we were like, okay,
It's
let's just stick to what our core is, and we stuck to that. And if you see, Rustam's is completely different from Soda Bottle, because
yes.
their approach was more Parsi plus Irani plus Bombay.
It's more the Dishon style, really. I mean, what
and ours
yeah.
was more, and what I believe what we did was what I don't think anyone in Bombay has done either. There is no Parsi restaurant in Bombay that does, like we started with Vengnano Patio, then
All this you only get from home
yeah,
chefs, and that too on
Idamagos.
order and well in advance.
So we were doing bhaji dana magos, pita
Wow.
magos.
On
So
your regular menu?
On a
On a
regular
day, wow.
yeah, we did
Wow,
so
wow,
we were
wow.
doing all of that. So
No
after,
wonder. I mean, people praise you guys so much. I mean, people whom I know and Parsis and even otherwise writers and stuff.
but after a point, like the comparison for me just ended. Like it was there in the beginning where I was like, oh no, like
Hmm.
we cannot afford to have any comparison, so we need
Huh.
to switch tracks and maybe do something different. And that's what we did. And the same thing happened with with even with Bhavan, we consciously, especially when it comes to Indian food right now, there's so many people doing
Yeah, and there's so many people who've defined it in their own way.
yeah, and it's
Indian accent, Bombay
yeah,
canteen, this,
yeah,
that, whatever.
everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
And even with mithai, Bhavan's mithais was something that we were working on for the past 4 5 years. Like
Hmm.
we have been working on the modern mithais for a while, but it happened that we had our entire list of mithais ready in terms of the idea, and then Ark came and they had similar mithais,
Sorry,
sweet,
who was this?
huh?
Who came?
Ark. There's Khoya
Okay.
and Ark are two other,
Because in Bombay, the Bombay canteen has a Bombay sweet shop or
Bombay
something like
street
that.
shop. So
Yeah.
before we opened, there other people had already opened. So we made a very conscious decision to then knock those items off our menu. We were like, you know what, it's okay. We'll work on new dishes.
Hmm.
Too bad now someone else has beat you to it. That's fine. That's how it works. So we just scrapped it and
And
we
that's a reality of food. I mean, it's food
yeah.
at the end of the day.
And I think that's what people need to understand. And I also don't take it personally when I see a similar looking dish on someone else's menu. It's not, it's not, maybe they've not copied it from you. Maybe they had the same idea as you. It's not fair
Yeah.
to assume that someone has copied your dish or something like that, because
I
I've
mean,
had
look at the patrani machi. I mean, in Bengal, we have the paturi, and people, well, but it's very different. It's just steamed in banana, but
exactly.
mustard. Then
Yeah,
there, in the south, there's a poli chatu, which is actually fried and then put in banana
yeah,
leaf
yeah.
with tamarind. They're all different
So
interpretations.
that's why we make it a point to not get upset if someone has, if we see a similar looking mithai or a dish, because we're like, it doesn't matter, because it happened to us wherein I've been this close to launching something and someone else did it before me. So I'm like, you know
Hmm.
what? Okay, I'll do something else. And
Yeah.
that has been happening, and it has nothing to do with someone, copying your idea or stealing your idea. It's just that two people can have the same idea at the same given point in time, and that has happened.
So I don't know. I'm so I was wondering whether I should ask you, not ask you, but I wanted, and I'm so glad that you said what you did, because what I got out of this, and say from putting words in your mouth, that I think you had a very clear vision in terms of both Rustom, what you wanted to do, which is to show a slice of life of Parsi and not, the Mario Miranda, though he's Goan
Yeah, and not
sort
the
of sketch of
Bollywood,
Parsi.
the
Ah,
Bollywood
not the
that
not
you've got
the
Sadra
not
and
the
just,
Pestonji
yeah,
coming
yeah,
in a
yeah, exactly.
Hari and Baba Nirani's
Yeah,
caricatures sort of thing. And also with Bhavan again, you had a very clear view in terms of street food and showing a side of Indian street food which is perhaps not shown. So what I got out of this is that you need to have clarity in terms of what you want to do,
yeah,
and then not get too overwhelmed by what others are doing, because
yeah.
then yeah, because
I
then we
think
would
that
not
is
have the Rustom's Bhonu, we would
Yeah,
not
that
have
is one
Bhavan.
thing I feel like we've never really cared about what other people do. Like I really don't look at other menus. If sometimes it happens when you launch something and you realize that shit, this person has already done this. But it's not a race to who's done it first. It's not a invention contest or anything.
Yeah.
So it's, if your version is something different, I feel you need to stop having that ego, that chefs
Yes,
have.
yes, yeah.
And I feel that
No,
happens a lot.
it's understandable as creative people, but
Yeah,
I think
there's
yeah,
bound to be an overlap, and I feel
yeah.
like you can't.
It's like the aloo in biryani story. I mean, I first read about it in V. Sangvi's Food, the
Yeah,
book many years back. Since then, a million people have written about it, and it's like write about something else, write about egg. Okay, listen, I think that it's fabulous that you said this. And I'll give you context because it's been 16 months of pandemic, lockdown, whatever. And we've been in our homes, and we've largely been surrounded by social media and what we are seeing through that. And I don't know about you or about people, but sometimes it can get very, very overwhelming. And nowadays they use this imposter syndrome and all that. So I think that this clarity of vision, which you said, is like really important. So,
yeah, because like honestly with Instagram, like I just stopped. Some days I delete it, some days I just stop following, because I feel like if something is, affecting me in a way that I cannot think clearly on my vision, because I'm worried about the other person, I just like, just
in fact, your fellow Parsi chef who's now gone independent, Anaita also wrote about that on Instagram sometime back. And last weekend, that's what I did. Like we were in a staycation and it was just getting too much for me. So for 2 days, I didn't switch off Instagram. But what I did was I would only come in particular points and, to share the thing of the view or what we're eating or whatever, and then go off. I would not see.
Yeah, I feel like honestly,
because everyone's making these Nobel Prize winning speeches, and then you're wondering like, okay, what the hell am I doing? I'm just putting some button in a chart.
As much as Instagram is a source of inspiration, it also kind of bogs you down because you can't.
Because there's no other contact with the real world right now, right? I mean, it's just your neighbors and Instagram.
Yeah, and there's too much. Then that self-doubt happens. You're like, oh, this one is doing this thing, so it's just better to shut off and do your own thing. That is what we do. Me and Rahul, like, we're like, fuck the world, we do what we have to do.
Yeah, you're already sounding like a Parsi granny. Better to shut off and do your own thing. But these are wise words. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's Kainaz Contractor, behind Rustom's Bhonu, behind Bhawan and many other things. But most importantly, I mean, go and eat at Rustom Bhonu, right? You can do that now. Bhawan is a takeaway thing. So look up their sites. If you're in Delhi and also Gurgaon, right?
But we deliver all across Delhi.
So you deliver all across. So whether you're in Delhi, Gurgaon yourself, or people there and you want to send them some nice foodie gifts, then you look up their Instagram sites or the websites or everything and place an order. And absolute pleasure talking to you, Kainaz. I must go and eat your food in the next time one goes to Delhi. Okay, do take care. Bye.
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 Okay.